Hello. Hey, I'm back. I was watching a car chase, so if you have any questions, put them in the chat. It's Alexander Lawrence, the Portal Infinite. I've been away for a couple days here, but I suggest you watch any. I'm kind of just picking books at random pulling them off the shelves now. But I am going to get to either Nabokov or Thomas Mann pretty soon, and I'm going to do. There's going to probably be multiple channels. So there are multiple episodes. Let's see how we're doing on the car chase. Okay, so we're going to talk about Junkie. There is a movie that people are talking about. The William S. Burroughs Queer with Daniel Craig is coming out, but this is like the early um, Burroughs, which of course, because I was kind of into Grove Press. I read, I got introduced to Burroughs like in '84. I think I got a lot of his books. Naked Lunch. The Grove Press did like the book that had like the Nova Express, the Soft Machine, the Ticket That Exploded. I think all three books were in the. So those it was hard, and then he started publishing new books like City of the Red Knight. I think. Let's see where is that? Yeah. So this kind of this sort of came out later. I had heard about these books, so yeah. So I mean, most people know the Nova trilogy. I read the last words of Dutch Schultz, sort of the Wild Boys. I never read, and then in the '80s he was reading the Cities of the Red Knight and Places of Dead Soul, and that's probably like the last. So I guess the stuff he was working on in the '40s and '50s. This is part of it, and this is pretty. This book's pretty much straightforward. Burroughs. It's not. I don't know enough of the Red Knight trilogy in the '80s to know, but I'm guessing it was more had more cut ups and stuff. And the Nova trilogy is definitely an experimental book. Naked Lunch is a classic, but let's look at this. This is like a special edition because Junkie sometimes it's spelled with the IE, and like he published it out under William Lee because like homosexuality was illegal back in those days. So let's read a little bit of the introduction by Allen Ginsberg. Bill Burroughs and I had known each other since Christmas 1944, and at the beginning of the '50s, we're in deep correspondence. I had always respected him as an elder and wiser than myself. Let's see. So they talk about the friendship, and then in case he responded to my letters with chapters of Junkie, I think began as a curious sketching, but soon as conceived on his part to my as a continuing workman-like fragment of a book. So he would send them. I mean, I think he sent like all his books. Junkie, the Yates letters, Queer, and much of Naked Lunch was kind of sent to Ginsberg and then kind of put together. And then Burroughs threw away a lot of the things. Those letters would be worth a lot. So so what happened here? Okay, so Solomon felt that we didn't care as what is this? Okay, so like yeah, I mean he had to sort of put like a little thing about how bad it was to do drugs and stuff, like I mean, so like he wouldn't, like the cops wouldn't come over. So Ginsberg's writing this in the '70s. Burroughs got an advance of $800, so he's basically doing like the Pulp Fiction kind of stuff. Okay, so this is who's this? This is another person talking here. This is Burroughs. Okay, he was born in 1914. So he's just talking Junkie. So yeah, like I think there's one thing where he's like talking about junk is control or something. Yeah, I have learned that the junk equation. Junk is not like alcohol or weed, a mean to increase enjoyment of life. Junk is not a kick; it's a way of life. Most addicts look younger than they are. Scientists recently experimented with a worm, and they were able to shrink by withholding food. So yeah, he would do these kind of things about, like, hey, this isn't like my personal biography. This is like a scientific book. So let's see how. Okay, my first experience with junk was during the war, about 44, 45, and I had made the acquaintance of a man named Norton who was. You don't want to like rat out your friends. Who was working in a shipyard at the time. Norton, his real name was Morelli or something like that. Yeah, he's slippery. Had been discharged from the peacetime army for forging a paycheck and was classified 4F for reasons of bad character. He looked like George Raft, but was taller. Norton was trying to improve his English and achieves a smooth, affable manner. Affability, however, did not come natural to him. In repose, his expression was sullen and mean, and you knew he always had that mean look and stuff. So yeah, there. This is a pretty straightforward novel. It's almost like semi autobiographical, and at the end it has like a glossary. Are you? We used to say this all. We used to like me and my friends when we're in the 80s. Are you holding? That means do you have any drugs? Benny, Benzedrine, bring down the brown stuff or mud opium, cocaine, coke, C, Charlie, capsules of heroin, cat, man, chick, women, clean. I use it to clean. He doesn't have any junk on his person. Cold turkey to quit. So these are like the standard. I don't know if he made them up or, I mean, I didn't realize it, but I think like Nelson Algren was definitely, an influence on the beats and stuff. So let's see. Okay, so that's Junkie, and let's just talk about. Let's see. We haven't really went very far. I didn't read very much of it either, but I suggest you read all his early books, Junkie Queer. I mean, they're available now. They were when I was younger, they were hard to get, so I almost read them kind of after the fact. But so Junkie, also known as Confessions of an Unredeemed Drug Addict, is a 53 novel by Burroughs. Follows William Lee as he struggles with his addiction to morphine and heroin. Burroughs based the story on his own experiences. He published under the pen name William Lee. Some critics view the character as William Lee as Burroughs himself. Junkie is largely autobiographical memoir. Others view Lee as a fictional character based on the author. Junkie was Burroughs' first published novel, although he had previously written an unpublished novel with Jack Kerouac. The hippopotamus was boiled in his tanks. It was initial, so he and Ace Books. So it was like pulp. It was sort of like Junkie, two books in one. So it was Ace demanded. Let's see, it was initially published by Ace Books in '53. They demanded changes, censored some passages, and bundled it in with a book about the Federal Bureau of Narcotics. Like this is like a story that's like reefer madness kind of thing. Like I think that's sometimes they would have books coming out in that way. So I mean that's how this version was commercially successful. People, it's, oh my god, like I mean, besides like jazz musicians, I mean, in the 40s and 50s, I mean, very few people in the suburban white world like were doing heroin, and like and not like now where almost it's like it's really like nobody, people. It's very rare to find someone that's not on painkillers or OxyContin. Okay, so yeah, the Penguins book published in '77, an uncensored history. So maybe that's the one I saw, but So, so publication. Yeah, Burroughs mailed chapters of Junkie to Allen Ginsberg as he wrote in his preface, the 77 edition. This one, Ginsberg claims that he and Burroughs collaboratively assembled the novel in these letters. He also notes that they continued the practice for Queer, Naked Lunch, and The Age. Burroughs finished the initial manuscript by 51. In 52, Ginsberg. So Burroughs was publishing before Kerouac. So he was and even Ginsberg. He was, or at least you know, On the Road didn't come out until 57. Yeah, and Ginsberg, uh, On the Road was, yeah, 55, 56, 55. When did Howl come out? Yeah, yeah, 56 maybe. Oh, so he was kind of like ahead of them by a couple years. Well, he was older too. That's good. Okay. So Burroughs' manuscript, originally titled Junk, named it to Junk out of concern that junk would imply the book itself was poor quality, and added that the subtitle Confessions of a Ace took advantage of the Burroughs' provocative subject by creating what Harris called an especially lurid and voyeuristic book cover, but also censored the book's language, removed passages, added editor's notes and disclaimers to avoid appearing to endorsing recreational drug use. Burroughs originally named the protagonist William Dennison, and Jack Kerouac's first published novel. Oh yeah, he wrote. I forget about The Town and the City. So maybe when did The Town and the City came out? Let's see. I forgot about that book. Yeah, that was out by John Kerouac. I guess that came out first. The Town and the City. I forgot about The Town and the City. And The Hippos Were Boiled in a Tank was written in 45. And let's see. Who knows when it came out? I've never read that. I've maybe seen parts of it. Okay, so before the novel, but I don't think Kerouac was happy with the Town and the City. He thought it was sort of back then you had to write like novels that please the publisher, stuff to get, like the kind of Norman Mailer. At least in publishing in the 50s to the 80s, it seemed like you had to write more kind of like the James Jones or the Norman Mailer or the Gore Vidal type of novel, or in the 80s, you had to be more like Raymond Carver to get anything done. And anyway, let's peep in on this. The car chase ended. Oh, I missed it. Okay, so we've been going for 13 minutes. William Burroughs. Let's see, where are we at? Okay, so later's edition, he sued Ace Books. Ace Books was probably out of business by that time. He probably got a payment. He got back the publishing rights. They did a new edition in 77. And they put in all the parts that they took out. And then I think they brought a 50th anniversary one in 2003 that had the definitive text of Junk. It had like stuff from Ginsberg. I gotta check that one out. And because Burroughs was into the orgone accumulator and William Reich, and he took that out. So let's see. You become a narcotics addict because you do not have strong motivations in any other direction. Junk wins by default. In a short prologue, William Burroughs describes his childhood as safe and comfortable, but marred by nightmares and hallucination. Bored with the suburban life and inspired by Jack Black's "You Can't Win," he began committing petty crimes. Burroughs states that he failed to find steady work and was rejected from the army, but needed money until he started using drugs. He describes addiction as a path of least resistance, not a conscious choice. He's uh, offered a job selling stolen morphine. He tries the drug for the first time, keeps some syrettes, then sells the rest to a buyer named Roy, who warns him about the dangers of addiction. Over a month, Lee uses up what he saved and becomes independent. He and Roy convince a series of doctors to prescribe morphine, but struggles to support their worsening addiction. Lee is arrested for using a fake name on a prescription. His wife bails him out, and he receives a suspended sentence. Lee experienced withdrawal symptoms, including hallucinations. The two initially paid for heroin by pickpocketing drunk subway riders. Later, Lee partners with a dealer, Bill Gaines, to buy, cut, and resell it, keeping some of it for himself. Lee forms a new circle of addicts and customers, but as the police begin cracking down on the drug trade, he and his customers become increasingly paranoid. Gaines decides his lifestyle has become too risky and checks into the hospital to treat his addiction. Lee attempts to quit heroin on his own, but fails. Gaines Lexington Hospital listens to other patients' stories of drug use and undergoes a methadone treatment, which he considers a success. After 4 months of recovery, Lee travels to New Orleans. He visits a gay bar and is invited to have sex, only to be robbed instead. That evening, he relapses and soon resumes selling heroin. The police arrest him, and Lee suffers severe withdrawal symptoms in jail, including rapid weight loss. His lawyers arrange for him to visit a sanitarium for experimental cure. And then he's in Mexico, um, drinking heavily, and he gets uremia. Doctor warns that he is drinking himself to death, and his wife leaves town with their kids. As anti-narcotics enforcement intensifies in U.S., Bill Gaines flees to Mexico to join Lee. He reveals that Roy was arrested and died in prison. Lee helps Gaines acquire a supply of heroin, but it's so heavily adulterated that Gaines nearly dies. Lee mentions that he and his wife have separated. He reads about Yage, a drug that may enable telepathy, and leaves New Mexico to seek it out, hoping it will fill the void that junk did not. So yeah, he's very direct, dry. He's kind of more like Hemingway, Dashiell Hammett. He's more, instead of he's well, Nelson Algren's like another probably influence at some point. I mean, I know he doesn't really get like a lot of William. A lot of people, some people consider this book to be like a building romance, similar to Catcher in the Rye. Um, Yeah, so I mean, this book did well. I mean, it was because it was sort of like, oh yeah, man, you got this junky book, it's like hot stuff. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad I got this version. I've had like a few different versions of this book over the years, but this one is one. So yeah, Burroughs. I mean, I haven't really read Burroughs lately, but I mean, this is definitely like something to check out. Okay, so that's enough for Burroughs. Let's do some shorter books and like yeah, I don't know. Is there a movie version of this or I don't know. Okay, thanks for listening. Check out I got other I've done like other authors recently, Robert Creeley, Arthur Rimbaud, Lina Genian, the LA anthology Poetry Loves Poetry, Lana Del Rey, Norma Cole, a lot of poets and writers, which I think are you know, pretty important and stuff. And let's get to them. Let's talk about them. You know, which authors would you like to hear about? I'll do that one next. Okay, that's it for today.